Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nihal Youssef, and on behalf of myself and Wild, we'd like to thank you for joining us today for Women in Lighting Design, first Wild Development Dialogue series, where we will explore the diverse and oftentimes unique career paths of key figures in the lighting industry. We would like today's format to be conversational, and we will offer opportunities for questions during the presentation. Upon entering and joining us today, we ask that if your account is not automatically muted, please do so for the enjoyment of all attendees. Our moderator for today, Nastasia Ortiz, will monitor the chat, and we invite you to send us your questions via the chat box at the bottom of your screen or to the right. Naz will monitor the incoming comments and then invite you to temporarily unmute yourself to engage with today's speaker. We will also offer time for open question and answer at the end of the presentation. Please note that this presentation will be recorded for future reference. All attendees will receive an email with the link for this presentation, and we encourage you to share this presentation with all members of the community that could not attend in person today. Without further ado, allow me to turn this over to our moderator, Nastasia, so she can introduce us to our first guest on today's inaugural Wild Development Dialogue.
Hello, everyone. So I would like to introduce to you today Deb Driscoll, LC and lead AP. She has been the electrical and lighting industry for over 46 years. Starting as an electrical contractor in Buffalo, New York, she has worked her way up to VP of stock sales at Chesapeake Lighting in Baltimore, Maryland. Deborah entered the electrical industry after college when she co-founded Driscoll Electrical Contracting, DEC. 15 years later, her interest in lighting led to an opportunity to start a lighting agency. Ready to spread her wings, she left Buffalo and became VP of sales for manufacturer Crescent Stonko, followed by an RSM for manufacturer Cooper Lighting. Over those 8 years, her role was to manage and educate both the agencies representing the respective manufacturer line and their customers. While at Cooper Lighting, Deborah completed her MBA. With no promotion available as a woman in her early 50s, in 2008, she moved onto lighting agency Chesapeake Lighting and became their VP of stock sales. So we would like to start with some questions. Deborah, what inspired you to begin a career in lighting?
Well, it really wasn't an inspiration. It was kind of a circumstance. One progression of my experience in the industry led to another progression to another progression. Let me explain a little bit more. So I started in this industry in 1975 when there was absolutely no women. The house that I first bought when I got out of college and got married was less than $40,000. And can you believe it? My mortgage payment was $250 a month. And we shared the house with a college roommate. So my whole total expense on monthly expenses was $125. In 1975, Angelina Jolie and Kate Winslet were born. And I started my career because I married an electrician. We were only married a couple of months when he got laid off. Came back to the house one day and said, guess what? We're going to start an electrical contracting business. And because you have the brains and the financial knowledge, you're going to be my business partner. Or guess what? We won't live in this house in a couple of months. So I just acquiesced because I really didn't have a choice. So we started an electrical contracting together at the tender age of 23. Actually, I tell people today that I started when I was 15, so they couldn't guess my age, plus 46 years. We were a women business enterprise, and I have to just emphasize that when I started in business, there were no women. It was a totally male-dominated industry. So how did I get into the lighting side? How does electrical contracting have anything to do with lighting? Early in the progress of the business, we ran into a developer, and this was pretty much the beginning of design build construction, or at least the design build community that we were involved with. And even though I was running the backside of the business, the finances, keeping track of all the money, that's, you know, the back end, that's where all the money is made, right? Keeping all of the payroll straight, keeping all of the bills straight, doing construction bid documents, doing construction draw documents. I still find myself in the position that on the design build drawings, there were a blank set of prints in front of me. And my job was to develop the lighting design based on the reflected ceiling requirements, based on the foot candle requirements. So I really didn't know how to do this. I had to teach myself how to do lighting design and educate myself in light fixtures and technology available at the time. And so I found myself constantly using the lighting application program from Acuity. I think a lot of you in the design community today might recognize that same program as Visual that's operated from Acuity today. Progressing through the industry, I developed a great expertise in the National Electric Code. And again, just a progression, I ended up taking licensing exams and holding several licenses with municipalities in the industry. 1975 was the year of Jimmy Hoffa. We were a non-union merit shop company. We didn't have any association with the electrical unions, and we found ourselves bidding multiple government contracts. There's a clause in a government contract that you have to pay Davis-Bacon wages. Davis-Bacon wages are basically the wages that are paid by the union to register apprentices and journeymen. Well, we were non-union. We couldn't have registered apprentices or training at, or to comply with Davis-Bacon. So we paid registered journeymen union wages to our employees, even though they weren't registered apprentices and journeymen. So what are you going to do when you're a pretty enthusiastic 25-year-old at this point? You decide that you need a registered apprenticeship training program for your employees. And one of my proudest legacies is I work with associated builders and contractors and did in fact found and still continues today, a non-union merit shop ABC electrical apprenticeship program in Buffalo, New York. The union situation was pretty tough. We were being pretty successful. The unions didn't like it. So they kept recruiting our employees and making continuing in the contracting business pretty difficult. So at that point, I had developed quite an expertise in the lighting business. So we sold the electrical contracting business and bought eventually a Lithonia lighting business in, again, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. It was a perfect opportunity. I already loved lighting, and now working for a lighting manufacturer, all at 100% of my time, my love of lighting grew and my love and knowledge of the lighting science grew. So fast forward, I've now worked with my husband 24 years. It's the millennium and life changes. And we just kind of grew apart. I don't have any other explanation, but I found that the Buffalo marketplace was way too small. I was a big fish in a small market and thought I would just spread my wings and become a little fish in a big market. So I left Buffalo and I went to work for as a regional sales manager, as mentioned, major manufacturers, and spent the next 8 years continuing my knowledge of lighting, traveling all over the United States, well, East Coast of the United States. And I did that for 8 years, 4 days a week, packing a suitcase, and then coming home on Friday, getting your clothes dry cleaned. We wore suits back then, and then getting back on the road. It just was exhausting. So I worked for Cooper Lighting. I thought I was on the path to promotion. They actually paid for my MBA. And when I got done with the MBA, I had all this knowledge that I really wanted to put to use. So I asked for a promotion, and I could not find a path to that promotion. So I moved on to my current position as Vice President of Stock Sales at Chesapeake Lighting.
So what are the responsibilities of your current position?
Well, I do a lot of things for Chesapeake Lighting, but my main responsibility is to work on the stock sales side of the business. It's somewhat unique in the agency. Most agents find that their focus is on the project side of the business, but Chesapeake Lighting has been very fortunate to have developed relationships with electrical distributors. So what do I mean by stock? Stock is finished white goods. It's the packages that come from China. It's the LED panels. It's the LED retrofit pieces that distributors would normally stock in their CDC. My job is to convince the distributors that Cooper Lighting, which is our major manufacturer, products, among other strategic manufacturers, are suitable for stocking in their warehouse, and then conversely sold through the electrical distributor counter locations. So it's warehoused in one location, it's pushed out to counters, and then the counter sales team actually sells the product. However, product doesn't sell itself. So I need a team of 6 people. I have 3 outside salespeople. I have 1 inside support person, and I have an inside salesperson that helps to make the sales of the product easier. My outside sales team go to branch locations on a bi-weekly basis, and their job is to take product samples, to take product literature, and to educate the team of the salesperson for the competitors as to how to sell the product. So it's a pretty difficult job today. I think everybody knows that LED products change. You all specify LED products. I would say that specifications from inception to completion and shipment, that LED product is probably gone through several generations. So product changes, price de-escalation. What do I mean about price de-escalation? Well, flat panels are probably not key to your design world, but are certainly key to over-the-counter sales today. When we first started selling a 2x2 flat panel, those flat panels cost $300. A distributor net cost on a flat panel today is less than $30. An inexpensive direct lit flat panel 2x2 today is $28 distributor net cost. So it's quite a challenge, because when we're in sales, our goal is to grow sales year over year, but we've had a 10,000%, I'm not good at math, decrease in the sales. And then there's the thought, I think you all agree, that when we first started talking about LEDs, they're going to last 100,000 hours. Well, that's not really the case, because the components don't last 100,000 hours, yet the manufacturers give each one of their products a 5-year warranty. The challenge is product failure. Imagine a lamp, one lamp on an order of maybe 200 or 300 lamps that are continuously purchased through stock, and one of those lamps fails in 4.5 years. Well, there's a 5-year warranty, but the manufacturer hasn't made that lamp in 3 years. So the challenge is to manage customer expectations, make sure that the current product is on the shelf, and then when the warranty comes up, satisfy the end user customer that he has a suitable replacement for his product. So, and again, you mentioned this webinar, for example, the world has changed. When I started producing marketing materials to back up our products that we sell, we went into publisher and we made a PDF. Well, that's not the way it is today. The world has definitely gone to digital marketing for interaction with social media to promote distributors' products for sales. It's keywords, it's landing pages. It's a completely different responsibility in 2021 from when I started promoting stock sales for the agency.
So we have a question from the group over here. What would you recommend for someone who is in the lighting industry who does not have a lighting background about advancing within a lighting design firm? Do you feel that credentials, or sorry, this is the rest of the question, or LC, for instance, set designers apart within the profession?
Yes, could you say that one more time?
Okay. The first part is, what would you recommend for someone who is in the lighting industry who does not have a lighting background about advancing within a lighting design firm? And do you feel that credentials, LC for instance, set designers apart within the profession?
Okay, part one, lighting knowledge. I would say that the foundation for my lighting knowledge was through the IS, attending IS meetings whenever they were offered with a key topic that improved my education in lighting. All of the manufacturers have lighting seminars, at least before COVID-19. And the best way to experience what a light fixture looks like is to travel to one of the promotional trips down to a manufacturer and actually go through their training centers so that they walk you through the different product categories. In addition, at least the manufacturer that we represent, Cooper Lighting, does have both online CEU classes that you can take for free. And then when we get past COVID, you'll be able to take actual 3 to 4 day CEU seminars down at their manufacturing facility. Those seminars, by the way, are educational only, do not promote product. The LC, it's interesting from my perspective as a sales agent. The LC is a very good credential, and I have a great knowledge of the requirements for lead, but I cannot commission a project because, of course, I'm involved in the sale of the project. From your design perspective, I think that having your LC, having the knowledge of lead requirements, and then being able to be involved in the commissioning is a tremendous credential to be used to separate your dedication to the lighting industry from maybe one of your other associates or a competitive engineering firm that doesn't have someone qualified with that expertise. Naz, I can't hear you.
Oh, muted, sorry.
Better.
Can you tell us something that you love about your job?
I love about my job, it's constant change and it's constant learning. There's not a day that goes by that there's not a new technology, there's not a new product change. The only constant in life is change, right? So it's helped me grow as a lighting professional over the years. You know, certainly we've grown from a 2x4 parabolic with a cool white, warm white, or a daylight lamp is our only choice, to now multiple color temperatures, ever-changing energy efficiencies, and to keep up with it is a challenge, and it's fun. And again, I'm a salesperson. So what I love about my job most is making a sale. There is nothing better from a salesperson to make a presentation, convince a customer that he has a need for the product, and that together we can be successful in growing sales, then the customer agreeing, understanding, and then placing an order to get the product in the shelf and get the sales so that I can meet my year-over-year sales increase goals. No agency is ever, and no manufacturer in the sales game is ever satisfied with either same sales or less than sales for the prior year. So one of the biggest challenges is to make sure you can grow that. And that's always through new product introductions. And then finally, I love mentoring new people in the business, particularly on the agency side. We bring in new people from college. They look at the screen and it's a part number. But there's a lot more to a part number than just the standard SKU or the UBC code. So what I really enjoy is explaining to them the background and the meaning of that part number. Every digit has a meaning and it's there for a reason. And when they get it, it's a big kick to see that, you know, the little light bulb that goes off in their heads and they're like, oh yeah, I understand now. And that's why that part number makes sense.
Great. So I have another question from the group is there a skill set that you found yourself learning that you did not foresee or expect?
I had no idea when I started in this industry about the science of lighting. Truly, color temperature, lumens per watt, required foot candles, and now some of the new requirements for well buildings, the lead requirements. all of that was just a continued development. I have to say that sometimes my electrical contracting background helps, particularly when there's job site issues or I have customers that don't understand the physical wiring of a fixture. But 100%, I started from knowing nothing about lighting to being in the business for 46 years. And I would credit myself with being fairly knowledgeable at this point.
Okay, so a follow-up question that is your position in the industry very unique, or are there other key people in the industry you know that hold positions similar to yours? And the other part is, was getting your MBA crucial to being where you are today?
Are there any people similar to me in the industry? I would say that there's a handful of women in the agency business. 2 or 3 of the agencies have women partners or principals, but I don't think that I have ever run into anyone in my position that runs the kind of stock volume in an electrical agency that I do. It just was an area of expertise that I developed and that my boss was more than happy to use to grow his sales for the agency. And the second part was my MBA.
I'm getting your MBA, yes.
Okay, again, education is always foundational. I work for a very small company. There's 44 people. I'm part of the management team, but being honest, my bosses are salespeople. They're not necessarily keyed in on any of the MBA management strategies. For instance, doing a SWOT table, which is pretty valuable for analyzing your business against your competitors, is kind of a foreign language to them. So I'd say in my position, my MBA was great educational background and certainly helps me to be more professional in my planning. But as far as it being helping me in my career at Chesapeake Lighting, it didn't.
Yeah, something I'm kind of interested in next is were there important persons or mentors along the way for you?
Again, I talked about the IS meetings. They were certainly important in my development in the lighting industry. I never found one that was truly dedicated to education that I didn't learn something from. And then my key person, I think that was my greatest mentor, and Kim Daly that's on this webinar with us also worked for this gentleman. He was my boss at Cooper Lighting, Brian Wittig. He was the most supportive person that I've ever worked for. He empowered me to go out, do my job, call on my agents, educate them to the Cooper Lighting product that I was selling at the time. And he trusted me, and he supported me, and he always gave me guidance with no criticism. I mean, he was the best boss ever. If you did good, he loved you. If you did bad, he said, well, that was a learning experience. You really should do it another way the next time. So he was my most influential person in my lighting career.
Right. And then what advice do you have for women who are starting their careers at this time?
I'd like to just throw out the fact that I learned late in my career, particularly working in a male industry, as I was looking to promote myself up into the upper management level, that the men had relationships that were formed very early, and they were mostly formed by their relationships in either prep schools going into an Ivy League college or at an Ivy League college. If you look at any of the successful men CEOs that are operating the business today, particularly in the electrical business that I'm familiar with, most of them are Wharton MBAs. So if there's a woman wanting to get into the industry and has senior management ambitions, my advice is to develop a resume, and get yourself into one of those Ivy League college, because those institutions are the foundation of the CEOs in America. There's still a role for women getting into business. I think everyone still needs to be cognizant of the fact that there's a difference between men and women. And I would say, just with my life experiences, that working for the government is a great way to go, because you can put your time in, you retire early, you get a full pension, you get your full health insurance paid for, and hey, you can work for the government and then start all over again and get another career. So again, I wasn't privy to any of that information as I was developing my career in the industry.
They say hindsight's 2020.
Yep, certainly is.
So in hindsight, is there anything you would do differently?
Probably not. Not anything that was significant. However, today I find myself, and for the last 13 years when I've worked for the agency, I'm not an agency principal, and the power in the lighting agency business is at the lighting principal agency. So if I had any regret when I accepted this job description, I would have looked for an agency that would have taken me in as a full partner. It's nice that I have a vice president title, but I still find myself up against the labyrinth. I'm not taken seriously, and sometimes I have to get my boss to speak for me, and it's pretty discouraging.
So I have another question from the group here. What are some of your sources of inspiration within the lighting or design industries?
Sources of inspiration. Again, I would say that because I've been in the agency business for the last 13 years and have worked primarily with Cooper Lighting, that taking groups of distributor salespeople down to the factory and going through their training source, both their lighting fundamentals classes, which have a basic explanation to the customer base about lighting fundamentals. But what I really like is when they get into what's going to happen next. For instance, what's going to happen next after LED. At one point, everyone was talking about OLEDs, but it seems like OLEDs can't be made efficiently and they're too expensive, and they're really not going to be the product of the future for architectural lighting. I get really jazzed by those kinds of conversations. Is Wi-Fi ever going to be a mainline lighting design criteria? Or again, is that just a concept that's not going to come to fruition because the web-based systems are just so powerful? So really, I go back to that continuous learning saga, that what's next is exciting to me. And looking at the technology as it's developed has just been a super interesting part of my career.
Right. And then do you have any particular words of wisdom that you want to share with the group?
It's always about blocking and tackling. I want to go back and just talk about one of the things that I still find to be a challenge, if you'll allow me just a few minutes to discuss about that, and I can tie it into your question. So my success has really been blocking and tackling. I have worked very hard. I would say that I always made sure that I had more knowledge, that I handled the details, and that I followed up on any commitment that I had made. It's simple as blocking and tackling. Make a plan, execute the plan, and then follow up on the plan. I would say also that for words of wisdom, there's still a glass ceiling out there for women in the industry. And I like to explain that as more of a labyrinth than a glass ceiling. I am very well accepted with the people that know me in the industry, but every time a new gentleman comes to work as a national sales manager at one of the manufacturers, then I have to play the game again. Because what I find is they have the attitude that they belong to the boys club. In other words, here's my definition of a boys club in business. They all went to college together. They all understand college football. They all understand college sports. And when they get together, they're drinking together, they're socializing together, and they have a fraternity. And I still think that that is a block for women truly succeeding in the industry today. And I'm going to ask Naz to post a article that I'm referring to. It's from the Harvard Business Review. It actually was written in 2007, but I encourage everyone to take a look at that article because it really discusses how women, just because of the fact that we have to stop back from childbearing and other women perspectives in life, how it holds us back from getting into the corporate boardroom. It's just something that I always keep in the back of my mind, and I try to work on it every day. And in summary, follow through on commitments. That's the most important thing to do. And if you can't, don't hide the fact that you can't follow through on a commitment. Make a new plan, communicate it to your boss, to your customer, to your business associate that, hey, it's not going to work this way. We need to change. All of that, I think, has been keys to my success. And frankly, the acknowledgement that from my contemporaries that I'm good at what I do.
I want to add my own question at the end of all this is what do you see about the future and where things are going for, I know you've had your slew of experience with your track and lighting design, but where do you see it maybe going moving forward for women in design?
I think that on the design level, there are more and more and more women getting into the design community. And I think that we're so successful because, hey, we get it, right? We're on top of it. We meet design requirements. And I think to a certain extent, the LED addition to the world of lighting has created opportunities and created more efficient lighting design solutions, if that makes sense. The picture behind me, that's a Shaper Sense fixture. Not advertising the brain, just saying that it was developed to handle sound absorption in spaces that are using open concepts or restaurants where there's hard surfaces. So as the need arises in the industry, I find it very fascinating that the manufacturers come up with solutions to meet the demand. And again, I don't know where the lighting industry is going to go beyond LEDs. When we first started talking about LEDs, we were probably talking about 39 lumens per watt. And today there's lighting fixtures available in the marketplace that are 285 to 289 lumens per watt. And from my knowledge, that's pretty much maxed out on the lumen efficiency of LEDs. So where are we going to go next? I don't know. We'll see.
Great. So at this time, let's to thank you and also open it up to anyone else in the group. Do you have any more questions? Also, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question instead of just typing in the chat this time.
Hi, yes, this is Crystal. I had a quick question for you. You mentioned that you would have, or you regret not demanding partnership at your most recent job, but what prevented you from, were you just happy where you were that you didn't go to a different company to pursue it? Or what was your reasoning behind that?
That's an interesting question. So there was a block. The agency principals were set. I was initially promised an opportunity to assume a management position, but as the years progressed, it became more and more obvious that I just wasn't going to be invited to be a principal, that the existing principal base, the four of them were pretty comfortable where they were, and they didn't want to share any more leadership responsibilities at their level with anyone else. And I have to say that even though I wasn't a principal, in most instances, my salary rewarded me for my effort. So there was a lot of satisfaction in that. At some point, you just kind of give up. I was already probably in my early to late 50s when I realized that that wasn't going to happen. And to move again, to go to another agency just seemed like more of a hurdle. And, you know, it's unfortunate. I've been very successful doing what I do at my job, but it just would have been more, I would have had more power to influence directions at an agency principal level than I ended up having just being a vice president.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I was just wondering, do you have a specific sales program or a management program that you like using?
Can you say it one more time?
Do you have a management sales program you like using to help you keep organized with everything?
No. Thank God the agency never got into salesforce.com, because that requires just a lot of recording. I carry around a little notebook, believe it or not, and I use Outlook. So I use Outlook to remind me of a proposal that I've made and I need to follow up. I use Outlook to schedule meetings. I use Outlook for education. We use Teams a lot now in the, the age of virtual discussions, not person-to-person discussions. I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like to write my notes in the book so that I have a place to go back and look at it. It's just simple blocking and tackling. Make sure that I talk to the customers on a regular basis. My sales team talks to the customers on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, there's no program, but we have an Excel spreadsheet, and their call schedules are laid out and documented. So every day they get up, they need to know that they need to call on this customer because it's Monday, that customer because it's Tuesday, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just plain old fashioned Excel spreadsheets and planning from paper.
Cool, thank you.
Great. And,
So
I was going to say, Kelly, I think you had a question.
yeah, it was it's a little off track, but you mentioned that your salary was something that you thought was acceptable for the amount that you were working, and I was curious how you knew that, because there's been a lot of discussion recently, Wild's been bringing it up a lot, of like transparency in pay, whether you can get, the taboo of discussing it with your colleagues, et cetera. So I'm just curious, like, were the books open to you and that's how you knew and you felt comfortable with that? Or were you discussing it with other equally partnered people in your firm?
Actually, in my firm, finance is a closed subject. There is no discussion, well, at least there shouldn't be any discussion among any employees at the company. So again, it was a good salary to me because it allowed me to maintain my lifestyle. I could kind of travel, I could come, I could go. I could contribute maximum amount to my 401k. And the company had a great matching program for the 401k. So if you add all that together, it was a comfortable salary, and again, no definite reflection on any other salary in the industry, just a reflection that met my personal satisfaction with my job and the amount of effort I put into it.
Got it. Understood. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah,
Are there any
salaries
other
are always a dicey question.
Yeah. They come up a lot. Obviously, we just had a big salary panel discussion on Monday night. And it's still a concern for a lot of people about whether or not they're actually getting paid what they're worth and paid equal to the gentlemen that are at the same equal job title as they are. So it's interesting.
You know, let me just reflect that I have a young person that's, I'm going to retire in a couple of days at the end of, well, July officially, but in a couple of days, I'm going to be done with my day-to-day tasks. And I have a young woman that's stepping up to take a significant part of my job. Actually, I've been replaced by 2 people, which I guess is a compliment, I think. But I did do an internet search because she was concerned about the salary that she was earning. And for a woman in her age group, based on medium and average sales, she's just 30 years old. I happen to know what her salary was, and she is significantly ahead of the curve. So based on just medium salaries, her experience level, I don't know that she feels satisfied with her salary, but I certainly, from a management position, feel like she's been rewarded for her knowledge and her progression in the company.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, I think a lot of it is also company culture. And if the employer is making sure their employees are taken care of and feel happy, then that says something.
And for a lot of years, before COVID, I mean, COVID has definitely changed all business norms. I think everyone would agree with that. You know, the company had a pretty generous profit sharing program. So if you contributed, despite maybe a salary disparity, at the end of the company's fiscal year, there was always a nice check, a nice thank you, and a nice reward for the effort that you put in. I don't know the details of that distribution, but I can only imagine that the distribution was based on contribution to the company, and those that contributed the most were rewarded the most, and those that contributed not so much were not so rewarded. So again, I always felt that, you know, at the end of the year, at the end of the day, that my efforts were appreciated. And, you know, again, I'm a salesperson. So the thing about salespeople is they get jazzed with success. So the more success you have, the more jazzed you get, the more you continue to develop, and the more you strategize to be successful.
Yeah, that makes sense. Great. Thank you for your perspective.
Hopefully
on
that answered the question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any final questions? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nehal.
And let me just say thank you all for listening. I hope it was informative. I've enjoyed the 46 years, not so rosy all the time, but in summation, it's good to say goodbye and move on to retirement.
Congrats.
Again, thank you very much, Deb, for sharing, you know, all this wonderful information and all of the steps along your unique journey. Thank you again. I know it's
Welcome.
It's been a very long path, and we wish you all your luck on the next step for your retirement. I hope you have all the joy you can.
Thank you very much. It's certainly been a progression. An unexpected progression, ending up in the lighting industry for 46 years.
Thank you. Again, it was a unique journey, and this is the purpose of these presentations, is to help us better understand, the paths that many of us have taken to end up where we are. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Nastasia for assisting us today, for navigating our Zoom presentation. Again, this is Wild's Development Dialogue Series, our inaugural presentation. We'd like to give special thanks also to the Delansky Group. Their generous donation to Wild has made it possible for our Zoom webinar account, and it's made it possible to have the format for our presentation today. So thank you very much. We would also like to extend our deepest gratitude to you, our Wild members, and thank you for spending your time with us today. Please remember to check our website and also follow us through social media and sign up for our email newsletters so that you can stay up to date on our local and national chapter events and also relevant industry news that we post there periodically. Also, keep an eye out for information on Wild, New York City's first in-person event of the summer at the end of July as we reconnect in the beauty of Central Park. We hope to see you soon at our second installment of this new development dialogue series later in September. Please stay tuned and stay wild, my friends. Thank you.
Thank you.